Well, good morning. We're back in Nehemiah this morning. I know we took a break yesterday, but I wanted to come back to it and show you something in chapter number 7. There's so much to learn in Nehemiah. A group of people attempting to reset their nation on honoring the Lord. And one of the greatest things that Nehemiah instituted was that the gates of the city would be closed from a certain time to a certain time every single day. Like as soon as the night would fall, they would close the gates, close them until the sun would come back up the next day, no business through the night. And then the Sabbath, they would have a designated day where there would be no work done, no buying and selling. They would lock the world outside of the city. And so let me just read it to you into the first 4 verses and explain to you why it's so important that we limit our involvement and the influence coming into our lives that the world has on us. So verse number 1 in chapter number 7 of Nehemiah, it says, "Now it came to pass when the wall was built and I had set up the doors and the porters and the singers and the Levites were appointed, that I gave my brother Hanani and Hananiah the ruler of the palace charge over Jerusalem, for he was a faithful man and feared God above many. And I said unto them, let not the gates of Jerusalem be opened until the sun be hot, and while they stand by, let them shut the doors, and bar them and appoint watches of the inhabitants of Jerusalem, every one in his watch, and every one to be over against his house. Now the city was large and great, but the people were few therein, and the houses were not builded." And so what he was saying is, hey, listen, this is the ultimate protection that I could offer you as you inhabit the city, that you would have a gate that was closed, and you knew at a certain time of day and a certain through the night. And then later on, he'll even institute the Sabbath one, where it closes on Friday night at dusk and doesn't open again until Sunday morning. For them, that was the Sabbath. And so it was important for people to understand that there needs to be a limit on our intake of the world around us. There needs to be a limit on how much we put our faith and our trust in worldliness over godliness. And so that was the point. That was what Nehemiah was trying to accomplish here. He was saying, hey, look, I know we need protection. That's the ultimate right there. We need protection from the world and the enemies that are in there. But we also need to have a time where we know that the Lord is the one taking care of us, and we don't need the worldly influences. We need to limit that down. See, in our day, we don't live in necessarily big walled cities, but our homes should be walled cities, where when we come in, there's certain times where we lock out the worldly influences and the dangers, and that we only have so much of that influence coming in because we've determined that God has his time, and that there's also times where we shut all that off. Today, unfortunately, most believers spend their whole time trying to get from the world and trying to do things and trying to make sure our families have this, that, or the other thing, because we'll only be happy if we have those things. And Nehemiah determined that, hey, look, that wasn't good for you. And that was under God's direction. And so we know in the New Testament, we see that mandate to limit worldly influences. In fact, he tells us to come out from among them and be separate. And so I want to encourage you today, if you really want to enjoy a strong spiritual life, you're going to have to make some hard decisions that limit the influence of the world on you and your family that God has put you in charge of. And so I want to encourage you this morning. Take control of your family. Take control of the influences that are coming in. Bar the door, which might actually be your television. It might be your special interests. It might be your outside activities. So many people are so consumed with everything outside that they hardly ever have time for the Lord inside. And so this is the ultimate protection that we can be offered. Limit the outside influences that are trying to come into our lives. I hope that this helps you today have a little bit more strategic approach to how you're going to protect and enjoy life.